The soft hum of conversation filled the grand lobby of Metropolitan Trust Bank, blending with sunlight streaming through expansive glass windows, casting reflections across the gleaming marble floor. Staff in tailored suits murmured discreetly with clients clad in designer apparel, the atmosphere exuding the quiet opulence of a financial gala in motion. But every movement stalled the moment a black woman stepped inside, her worn sneakers grazing the marble with gentle steps, a faded cardigan clinging to her slender frame, and a weathered leather handbag swaying silently at her side. Maya Johnson. Her gaze sharp as steel, posture upright, each measured step slicing through the harmony like a silent disruption no one had invited. Behind the VIP counter, Richard Sterling adjusts his Armani tie and glances at his Rolex. His eyes narrow as they track Maya's approach, his lips curling into a barely concealed sneer. At 28, Jennifer Walsh fidgets nervously at the teller station, her intuition already picking up on the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. The atmosphere grows thick with unspoken judgment, the kind that precedes moments that change everything. Maya approaches the VIP service counter with measured steps, her presence commanding despite her simple attire. She clears her throat softly and addresses Jennifer with a warm smile. "Good morning. I need to speak with your branch manager regarding a significant business transaction." Richard Sterling intercepts before Jennifer can respond, his voice dripping with condescension. "Excuse me, miss, but I think you might be confused about where you are." He gestures toward the general banking area with theatrical flourish. "This isn't the welfare office, and that certainly isn't the ATM section. The customer service desk for your type of needs is over there." Maya's eyebrows furrow slightly, but her voice remains steady. "I'm here to conduct legitimate business with this institution. I specifically requested to speak with the branch manager about a corporate transaction." Richard's laugh echoes through the marble hall, drawing curious glances from other patrons. "Corporate transaction?" He looks Maya up and down with exaggerated disbelief. "Ma'am, I've been in this business for 20 years. I can spot someone trying to cash a government assistance check from a mile away. Now, if you'll just move along to the appropriate queue." Jennifer shifts uncomfortably behind her station, her training warring with her conscience. She's witnessed this pattern before, but never quite so blatantly. "Sir, perhaps I could help the customer with—" "Jennifer." Richard cuts her off sharply. "I'll handle this situation. You focus on your assigned duties." He turns back to Maya with mock patience. "Look, I understand you might have heard about our business banking services online, but there are certain requirements for accessing those facilities. Why don't you start with opening a basic checking account? We have some very affordable options that might suit your budget better." Maya takes a slow breath, her fingers tightening imperceptibly around her handbag strap. "I'd like to wait for the branch manager, please." Her voice carries a subtle steel that Richard either doesn't hear or chooses to ignore. "The branch manager is far too busy for walk-in appointments," Richard responds dismissively. "Especially for routine matters. Now, I really must insist that you either conduct your business through appropriate channels or consider visiting us another time when you're properly prepared." The other customers in the bank begin to notice the commotion. An elderly white gentleman in casual clothes enters and immediately receives Richard's warm, professional greeting, despite being dressed similarly to Maya. The contrast is stark and unmistakable. As Maya settles into the general waiting area, her mind drifts back to her journey, the scholarship kid from the projects who earned her way to Harvard Business School, who spent grueling years at Goldman Sachs proving herself in boardrooms filled with doubt and prejudice. She remembers the countless times she'd been mistaken for administrative staff, the subtle comments about diversity hires, and the way rooms would fall silent when she spoke. Each memory hardens her resolve. Jennifer seizes a moment when Richard steps away to take a phone call. She approaches Maya cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry about that. This isn't the first time I've seen him behave this way. Her eyes dart nervously toward Richard's location. Last week, he refused to process a home loan application for a Latino family, claiming they didn't meet our cultural standards for the neighborhood they were buying in. I reported it to HR, but nothing happened. Maya studies Jennifer's face, recognizing the internal struggle of someone caught between doing what's right and protecting their livelihood. What's your name? Jennifer Walsh. I've only been here 8 months, but I've seen enough to know this is wrong. She glances around nervously. Mr. Thompson, the branch manager, he's different. He's in a meeting with the regional director right now, but he should be back within the hour. Thank you for treating me with respect, Jennifer. That means more than you know. Maya watches as Richard returns to his station and immediately approaches a well-dressed white couple who entered after her. His demeanor transforms completely. Warm handshakes, genuine smiles, immediate escort to the VIP area. The husband is wearing khakis and a polo shirt. Far less formal than what many would expect for a major banking transaction, yet he receives red carpet treatment. A few minutes later, an African-American couple in their 50s enters, seeking information about refinancing their mortgage. Richard barely looks up from his computer, pointing them toward a self-service kiosk. You can find all our current rates on that screen. If you meet the qualifications, you can start the application process online. The contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Jennifer catches Maya's eye and nods slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the pattern they're both witnessing. Other customers begin to notice too. Subtle glances, whispered conversations, the uncomfortable shifting that happens when injustice plays out in public spaces. Maya checks her phone discreetly. The text from her assistant confirms that the $50 million transfer is approved and ready for execution, pending her authorization. She almost smiles at the irony. In her worn jeans and cardigan, she carries more financial power than most people in this building will see in their lifetimes. Maya rises from her seat to check the time on the wall clock, her phone slipping from her fingers in the process. The device clatters against the marble floor, its screen flickering momentarily before stabilizing. The sound draws immediate attention, but Richard's reaction goes far beyond normal concern. Security! Richard's voice booms across the banking hall. We have a suspicious individual engaging in surveillance activity. He strides toward Maya with purpose, his face flushed with manufactured urgency. Ma'am, I need you to step away from that device immediately and remain where you are. Maya looks up from retrieving her phone, confusion evident in her expression. Excuse me? I simply dropped my phone. What exactly are you implying? Richard's voice carries across the entire bank, ensuring maximum public humiliation. In my 20 years of banking experience, I've learned to recognize the warning signs of criminal reconnaissance. You've been observing our security procedures, taking note of our staffing patterns, and asking probing questions about our operational protocols. That's completely false, Maya responds firmly, her voice steady despite the growing audience. I've been sitting quietly, waiting to conduct legitimate business. Your accusations are baseless and inappropriate. But Richard is already signaling to the security guards, his gestures theatrical and designed for maximum impact. Ladies and gentlemen, for your safety, we have a potential security situation developing. Please remain calm while we address this matter professionally. Jennifer attempts to intervene from behind her station. Mr. Sterling, surely there's been a misunderstanding. The customer has been completely cooperative. Jennifer, you lack the experience to assess these situations properly. Richard cuts her off with authority. Please return to your duties and allow security professionals to handle this matter. The security team approaches Maya with practiced efficiency, their presence transforming her from customer to suspect in the eyes of the gathered crowd. Richard continues his performance, ensuring every word carries to the farthest corners of the bank. We cannot allow potential threats to compromise the safety of our valued customers and staff. I've identified several red flags that require immediate investigation. Maya maintains her composure despite the growing circle of onlookers. I demand to speak with your supervisor immediately. This treatment is completely unwarranted and, frankly, discriminatory. Richard scoffs loudly. Discriminatory? Ma'am, I don't see color. I see suspicious behavior. The fact that you're attempting to play that card only reinforces my concerns about your true intentions here. The security guards position themselves strategically, creating a perimeter that effectively traps Maya in place. Other customers whisper among themselves, some looking uncomfortable with the unfolding scene, others accepting Richard's narrative without question. I want everyone to witness this, Maya states clearly, her voice carrying despite her controlled tone. I am being targeted and humiliated for no reason other than this man's prejudices. I have done nothing wrong, asked for nothing unreasonable, and posed no threat to anyone. Richard dismisses her words with a wave. These are exactly the tactics we've been trained to recognize. Emotional manipulation, false claims of persecution, attempts to garner sympathy from bystanders. It's all part of the playbook. Richard Sterling reaches for his desk phone with theatrical determination, his voice projecting across the banking hall for maximum dramatic effect. I'm calling the police. We have an individual who has been conducting surveillance of our facility for over an hour, asking suspicious questions about our security procedures, and becoming increasingly agitated when challenged. Maya's eyes flashed with controlled anger. Mr. Sterling, I am warning you that you are making a serious mistake. I have done nothing illegal, and your accusations are completely fabricated. The police will sort that out, Richard replies smugly, already dialing. Hello, this is Richard Sterling, Senior Vice President at Metropolitan Trust Bank on 5th Avenue. We need immediate police assistance for a suspicious individual who appears to be conducting reconnaissance for potential criminal activity. Yes, she's been here for over an hour, taking notes, observing our security protocols, and when confronted, she became hostile and threatening towards staff. Jennifer watches in horror from her station, tears forming in her eyes as she witnesses the systematic destruction of another human being's dignity. She wants to speak up, to correct the lies, but fear of losing her job keeps her frozen in place. The police dispatch confirms they're sending units immediately. Richard hangs up with satisfaction, addressing the growing crowd of onlookers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption to your banking experience. We take security very seriously here at Metropolitan Trust, and sometimes that means making difficult decisions to protect our valued customers. Maya requests to call her attorney, but Richard firmly denies the request. You'll have that opportunity once the police arrive and assess the situation. For now, I need you to remain seated and avoid any sudden movements. 2 police officers arrive within minutes, their presence lending credibility to Richard's fabricated narrative. Officer Martinez, a veteran with 15 years on the force, approaches with professional caution, while his younger partner, Officer Chen, surveys the scene with eager attention. Richard immediately begins his rehearsed performance. Officers, thank you for responding so quickly. This individual has been conducting what I believe to be surveillance of our banking facility. She arrived over an hour ago, has been observing our security procedures, asking detailed questions about our cash handling protocols, and when I attempted to assist her with legitimate banking needs, she became hostile and made what I interpreted as veiled threats. Officer Martinez looks between Richard and Maya, his experienced eyes noting inconsistencies in the scene. Ma'am, can you explain what brought you to the bank today? I came here to meet with the branch manager about a substantial business transaction, Maya responds clearly. I've been waiting patiently for him to return from a meeting. I haven't conducted any surveillance, haven't asked about security procedures, and certainly haven't made any threats. Richard interrupts with practiced indignation. Officers, she's been taking photos with her phone, mapping our floor plan, and timing our staff rotations. When I approached her about these activities, she immediately played the race card and accused me of profile. I haven't taken any photos, Maya states firmly. I dropped my phone accidentally, which seems to have triggered this entire fabrication. Officer Chen steps forward eagerly. Ma'am, we're going to need to see some identification and conduct a brief search of your belongings. The humiliation reaches its peak as Maya is asked to stand against the wall while her handbag is searched, in full view of the assembled customers. Some look away in discomfort. Others watch with voyeuristic fascination, and a few begin recording the scene with their phones. Richard continues, adding fuel to the fire. I suspect she may be part of a larger criminal organization. We've had intelligence reports about groups that send scouts to case financial institutions before attempting robberies. Her phone could contain photos or communications with accomplices. Officer Martinez examines Maya's identification carefully. Ms. Johnson, this is a very serious situation. Banking security is a federal matter, and if there's any truth to these allegations, Officer, I understand you're doing your job, but this man has fabricated every single accusation. I came here as a customer. I've been treated like a criminal, and now I'm being publicly humiliated based on lies. The situation reaches a critical point as Officer Chen prepares to place Maya in handcuffs for transport to the station for further questioning. Richard watches with barely concealed satisfaction, believing his performance has successfully eliminated what he perceived as an unwelcome presence in his pristine banking environment. Just as the metal cuffs click around Maya's wrists, the sound of rapid footsteps echoes through the marble hall. Marcus Thompson, the branch manager, appears at the top of the staircase, his face a mask of confusion and growing horror as he takes in the scene below. Marcus Thompson's footsteps thunder down the marble staircase, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Stop! Officers, please stop immediately! His face has gone ashen as recognition dawns. Release her this instant. This is a catastrophic misunderstanding. Richard turns with confidence, expecting support from his superior. Marcus, I'm handling a security situation here. This woman has been... Richard, do you have any idea what you've just done? Marcus's voice trembles with barely controlled panic. He addresses the officers directly. Gentlemen, I need you to remove those handcuffs immediately. You are currently detaining Maya Johnson, the CEO and founder of Johnson Capital Investment Fund. The words hit the banking hall like a physical blow. Richard's face drains of color as the magnitude of his error begins to register. That's impossible. She can't be... I mean, look at her, Marcus continues, his voice growing stronger and more authoritative with each word. Ms. Johnson manages over $2.5 billion in assets. Johnson Capital is the third largest shareholder in Metropolitan Trust Bank's parent company. She came here today to finalize a $50 million transfer for a new urban development project. Officer Martinez quickly removes the handcuffs, his professional demeanor shifting to one of deep concern. Ma'am, I sincerely apologize. We were responding to what we believed was a credible security threat. Maya rubs her wrists gently, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. Officer, you were doing your job based on the information provided. The problem isn't with your response, it's with the source of that information. Marcus turns to face the assembled crowd, his voice carrying throughout the bank. Ladies and gentlemen, I need everyone to understand the gravity of what has occurred here. Maya Johnson is not just our client. She's one of the most respected investment professionals in the country. She sits on the board of directors for the Metropolitan Trust Foundation and has personally donated over $10 million to educational and community development programs. Jennifer steps forward from behind her station, her voice shaking but determined. Mr. Thompson, I tried to intervene. I witnessed Mr. Sterling's behavior throughout this entire incident. He refused to allow Ms. Johnson to wait for you and made assumptions based solely on her appearance. Marcus's attention focuses on Richard with laser intensity. Richard, explain to me how one of our most important clients ended up in handcuffs in our lobby. Richard stammers, desperately trying to salvage the situation. I was following security protocols. She didn't identify herself properly. How was I supposed to know? She doesn't look like, her appearance suggested. Maya steps forward, her voice carrying quiet authority that silences the entire hall. Mr. Sterling, please finish that sentence. I don't look like what exactly? Like a CEO? Like someone with the right to be treated with respect in this establishment? Or did you mean I don't look white enough for your comfort? The silence becomes deafening. Every person in the bank understands exactly what Maya means, and the truth hangs in the air like smoke from a fire that can't be extinguished. Marcus continues revealing the scope of Mia's influence. Ms. Johnson graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School, spent 10 years as a managing director at Goldman Sachs, and built Johnson Capital from the ground up. Her fund has consistently outperformed market benchmarks for 7 consecutive years. She's been featured on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, and Bloomberg Businessweek. A well-dressed businessman who witnessed the entire scene steps forward. I can corroborate everything that happened here. This gentleman, he points at Richard, treated Ms. Johnson with complete disrespect from the moment she entered, while rolling out the red carpet for customers who looked like him. Maya pulls out her phone and opens her banking application, showing the screen to Marcus. This is the transaction I came to complete today. A $50 million transfer to fund affordable housing development in underserved communities. But given what I've experienced here, I think we need to seriously reconsider our banking relationship. The full weight of the financial catastrophe crashes down on Richard. $50 million. Gone. The bank's relationship with a $2.5 billion fund potentially destroyed. His career certainly over. Officer Chen approaches Maya respectfully. Ma'am, is there anything we can do to address this situation from a law enforcement perspective? Maya considers the question carefully. Officers, what happened here today represents a systemic problem that goes far beyond one individual's prejudices. However, I appreciate your professionalism once the facts became clear. Marcus Thompson's voice cuts through the silence with the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. Richard Sterling, you are terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the building within the next 10 minutes. You will receive formal notification of your dismissal and potential legal consequences through certified mail. Richard's world implodes in real time. 20 years of building his career, his reputation, his sense of superiority, all crashing down in a matter of minutes. Marcus, please, you can't do this. I have a mortgage, a family, children in private school. This is my life we're talking about. Maya's voice remains steady, but her words carry the weight of absolute authority. Mr. Sterling, you had 20 years to learn how to treat people with basic human dignity. What you did today wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a revealing glimpse into who you really are. The elderly businessman who witnessed the entire incident steps forward again. I've banked here for 30 years, and what I saw today was absolutely disgusting. If this institution doesn't take serious action, I'll be closing all my accounts and taking my business elsewhere. A wave of murmurs ripples through the crowd as other customers begin expressing similar sentiments. The financial implications multiply exponentially as Marcus realizes this incident could trigger a much larger crisis of confidence in the bank. Jennifer approaches the group, her voice stronger now that the power dynamics have shifted completely. Mr. Thompson, I need to formally report that this wasn't an isolated incident. I've witnessed Mr. Sterling engage in discriminatory behavior toward minority customers on multiple occasions. I have dates, times, and detailed notes. Richard attempts one final, desperate defense. This is ridiculous. I treat all customers equally. I was just being cautious about security. In today's environment, you can't be too careful. Maya cuts him off with surgical precision. Mr. Sterling, security concerns don't explain why you immediately welcomed the white gentleman who entered after me, despite his casual attire. They don't explain why you directed the African-American couple to a self-service kiosk while personally escorting white customers to VIP services. And they certainly don't explain why you fabricated a completely false story to the police. Marcus addresses the gathered crowd with growing confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I want everyone here to know that this behavior does not represent the values of Metropolitan Trust Bank. We will be implementing immediate changes to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Richard makes one last plea as security approaches. Maya. Ms. Johnson, I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Surely someone in your position understands that careers shouldn't be destroyed over one bad day. Maya's response carries the wisdom of someone who has faced discrimination countless times, but never let it break her spirit. Mr. Sterling, this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose to see my skin color instead of my humanity. You chose to assume the worst instead of showing basic courtesy. You chose to double down on your prejudices instead of listening when corrected. These weren't split-second decisions. They were deliberate actions that revealed your true character. A young mother with her teenage daughter approaches Maya. Thank you for handling this with such grace. My daughter needed to see that standing up to injustice doesn't require becoming the same kind of person who perpetrates it. The security team arrives to escort Richard from the building. His colleagues avoid eye contact, some out of embarrassment, others out of fear that association with him might damage their own careers. The man who seemed so powerful and authoritative just an hour ago now appears small and pathetic as he's led away. As Richard reaches the door, he turns back for one final look at the wreckage of his career. Maya meets his gaze directly, her expression neither vengeful nor sympathetic, simply resolute. The message is clear. Actions have consequences, and today his consequences have finally caught up with him. After Richard's departure, Maya sits across from Marcus in his private office, the tension slowly ebbing from the room like water from a broken dam. Marcus continues apologizing profusely, but Maya raises her hand gently to stop him. Mr. Thompson, the issue isn't just Richard Sterling. The problem is a system that allowed him to operate this way for 20 years without meaningful oversight or accountability. Her voice carries no anger now, only the weight of experience and wisdom. How many other customers were subjected to his treatment but didn't have the resources or position to fight back? Marcus nods gravely. You're absolutely right. We failed in our responsibility to create an inclusive environment. What can we do to make this right? Maya considers her response carefully. I won't withdraw the $50 million investment, but I have conditions. Metropolitan Trust needs to implement comprehensive diversity and inclusion training for all staff. Not just a token workshop, but ongoing education with measurable outcomes. Additionally, you need to establish an independent oversight committee to investigate discrimination complaints. Done. Marcus agrees immediately. What else? I want Jennifer Walsh promoted to VIP Customer Relations Manager. She showed courage and integrity today by trying to intervene, even when it could have cost her job. People like her represent the future of this industry. When they return to the main floor, Maya seeks out Jennifer, who is still visibly shaken by the day's events. Jennifer, you did something very important today. You chose to stand up for what's right, even when it was difficult and potentially dangerous for your career. Jennifer's eyes fill with tears. I felt so helpless. I wanted to do more, but I was scared. Maya places a reassuring hand on Jennifer's shoulder. Fear is natural when confronting injustice, especially when your livelihood depends on staying silent. But you didn't stay silent. You spoke up. You showed kindness, and you documented what you witnessed. That took real courage. Maya addresses the remaining staff and customers in the banking hall. Today has been a difficult lesson for all of us about the persistence of discrimination and the importance of speaking up when we witness injustice. But it's also been a demonstration of how quickly things can change when people decide to do what's right instead of what's easy. She pauses, looking around the room at faces that reflect a mixture of shame, understanding, and hope. Each of you has the power to create positive change in your own sphere of influence. Whether you're a teller, a manager, or a customer, you can choose to treat every person who walks through these doors with dignity and respect. Maya completes her $50 million transaction smoothly and efficiently, the same transaction that should have been routine from the beginning. As she prepares to leave, she turns to Marcus one final time. "Mr. Thompson, I'll be monitoring the progress of these reforms closely. I believe Metropolitan Trust has the potential to become a model for inclusion in the banking industry, but only if you commit to real, sustained change." The transformation in the bank's atmosphere is palpable. Staff members who had previously remained silent about discriminatory practices now feel empowered to speak up. Customers who witnessed the incident spread word about both the problem and the bank's response, creating accountability that extends far beyond the marble walls of this single branch. This story reminds us that discrimination doesn't wear a uniform or announce itself with fanfare. It often appears in the subtle assumptions, the split-second judgments, and the unconscious biases that shape how we treat one another. Maya Johnson's experience illustrates that dignity isn't determined by designer clothes or expensive accessories, but by our fundamental recognition of each person's inherent worth. Every one of us has the potential to be Jennifer, the person who chooses between comfortable silence and uncomfortable truth. We can also be Marcus, the leader who implements systemic change when confronted with evidence of injustice. The question isn't whether discrimination exists in our communities and institutions, but whether we'll be part of the problem or part of the solution. The next time you witness someone being treated unfairly, what will you choose? Will you look away? Convince yourself it's not your business and hope someone else intervenes? Or will you find the courage to speak up, to document, to support the person being targeted? Remember, the person you defend today might be the one who changes your life tomorrow. In a world where assumptions can be shattered in an instant, you never really know who's sitting next to you, who's standing in line behind you, or who's walking through your door. Because sometimes, the woman in worn jeans and a cardigan might just be the one holding the keys to $50 million and the power to transform everything you thought you knew about success, dignity, and justice.